morning, Secondary 3 Social Studies students. This is Mr. Seow, and today I want to go through the question 7 essay on chapter 5 of your Social Studies syllabus, which is about factors shaping identity and therefore contributing to a diverse society. Before I begin, you should have two items with you. First, you can have your textbook, your course book with you. And for this course book, you should begin with page 119, which is the start of issue 2 on diversity. We are moving on to a new issue past the first 4 chapters. The first 4 chapters were about citizenship and governance, about your role in a country, how you contribute to your country, and how a government works and how a government makes complex decisions, which we call trade-offs, based on the principles that shape governance, and therefore how it helps to organize life in a country that ensures a high standard of well-being among the citizens. That was the first 4 chapters. Today, with chapter 5, we entered issue 2 on diversity. You can take notes on page 118 and 19 as I make some remarks about diversity. Diversity, as I may have said in class, is the idea of difference. Diversity is the idea of difference. When we say a diverse society, we mean that a society that contains differences. Differences, variation, variety, a whole range of people who are unique and different from each other. And therefore, in order to understand what makes a diverse society, we must first understand what makes unique individual identities. I repeat, in order to explain what makes for a diverse society, we must understand what makes for unique individual identities. And there are 4 factors we study in chapter 5. The 4 factors that shape unique identities that therefore contribute to a diverse society. The 4 factors are race and ethnicity, religion, socio-economic status, and nationality. Again, the 4 factors of race and ethnicity, religion, socio-economic status, and nationality shape every individual's unique identity. And by having many people with different race and ethnicity, different religions, different socio-economic status, different nationalities, right? They have a different way of seeing themselves. They have different personal beliefs. They have different regular customs and practices. They have different circles of friends. They have different skill sets, different jobs, different occupations, different ways of thinking and learning and communicating. And all these differences in attitudes, in behaviors, and in customs, again, all these differences and variation in attitudes, behavior, and customs create a diverse society. So in a nutshell, and if you listened to what I was saying and took it all down, and perhaps I should just write it just here, right? So the factors shaping unique identities, which are race and ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, and nationality, right? Shape factors shaping the identities will therefore determine individuals' attitudes, beliefs, and customs, create a variety of behaviors, beliefs, and behaviors, therefore contribute to a diverse society. And in general, broadly speaking, for this chapter, there are 2 things that we could ask you to explain. We could ask you to explain how each of these factors shape an individual's unique identity. We could ask you how to explain each of these factors create a diverse society. And so you will see for the essay question that I've posed, we will try to explain some of these ideas. So take these down and in your textbook or on your notes, and then let's move on. So today we talk about the factors shaping identity. As with before, we will use the Peel argument. Peel refers to point, elaboration, explanation, and link. We need to respond to the question given using a point, elaborate on our point, explain the link, the connection between the point, the point and the question focus, and finally, link it all up together. Question 7a. Do you think that race and ethnicity is more important than socio-economic status in creating a diverse society? So this here, I give you a minute. Highlight factor 1, factor 2, and the question focus. And you should have been able to identify race and ethnicity as factor 1. And socio-economic status as factor 2. And creating a diverse society as the question focus. So in order to respond to this question, we need to construct a Peel paragraph for each factor where we state the point. The point is derived directly from the question. We elaborate on the given factor. We explain how this given factor connects to the focus. And we make a link back to the question, which is the point. In order for us to do this, you have 2 points of reference. The first is the textbook, as I've said, and you can flip, in this case, on race and ethnicity. You can flip to page 121. Information will be given on race and ethnicity, and you can refer to these for your examples, for your evidence, in order to elaborate on the point. The other option you have is the issue 2 SRQ notes. The issue 2 SRQ notes. And here in this new set of notes that we have given you are the key understandings for issue 2. Some national exam questions that have come out in the past on issue 2. And issue 2 here refers to chapters 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, and 7. And you can go on the next page where you have the tables where we have provided descriptions of the factors, examples of the factors, and explanations on diversity, identity, and social harmony. And these are your starting points in which you can use to respond to different essay questions that may be posed to you. For this particular exercise, for this particular worksheet, for this essay question, let's first look at how the paragraph on race and ethnicity was constructed, and then we try to construct one for socio-economic status. So the question is, how does race and ethnicity create a diverse society? How does socio-economic status create a diverse society? So that's the first paragraph and the second paragraph. And then in the weighing paragraph, we sort of take a step back and we think which one is more important in creating a diverse society, or are they equally important in creating a diverse society? And there are 3 routes there. So first we start with the first paragraph. We talk about race and ethnicity. Okay, so before we talk about race and ethnicity creating a diverse society, what is race and ethnicity? We say that, well, race is about the physical visible traits. So in Singapore, people could belong to different races. For example, they could be Chinese, they could be Malay, they could be Indian. However, beyond the visible and physical traits, there are a set of cultural traditions associated with each race group, and that is what we call ethnicity. For instance, and here we use an example to illustrate what we mean. The Chinese in Singapore celebrate Lunar New Year, where they give out red packets. That is one example of a cultural custom associated with the race. Another example is that Indian families celebrate the harvest festival Pongal, where they sit around a boiling pot of rice and milk and they celebrate the good harvest for the year. And that is another example of a culture or a custom associated with that particular race and ethnicity. So we have here elaborated on what we mean by race and ethnicity. We need to go further. We need to respond to this question of how do these features then create a diverse society. And remember, the idea of diversity, I said, was difference, was variation, was a range of eclectic and differing and unique beliefs, behaviors, attitudes, customs. So we need the idea of difference to emerge from your explanation. So what does that mean? So let's look here. Each ethnic group has their own unique beliefs and customs, right? Okay. And that creates a mix of different identities. Here the idea of difference is coming out. A mix of different identities, which makes for a diverse society with a wide range of unique cultural habits given. This is a clear explanation of how race and ethnicity, where one ethnicity has Lunar New Year where they give out red packets, another one celebrates a harvest festival. Look, there is a range of different activities, practices, beliefs, habits, and that creates a mix of identities that creates a diverse society given. Furthermore, extending beyond the idea that each ethnicity has different practices, we even say that living in a multicultural society gives everyone a chance to experience different customs and even create new fusion products and practices. And we will learn more about fusion products in chapter 6. In chapter 6, for now, the idea and explanation here is simply highlighting that if, for instance, you were a Chinese person, but you went and experienced, for example, a Malay wedding or an Indian ceremony, these experiences would enliven and enrich your own beliefs, your own approaches, your own practices. You might come up with new habits and practices, and that creates even more difference and variation in society. So the fact is that when there is diversity in society with different cultures and different ethnicities and different customs and different traditions, by experiencing all these different customary and traditional activities, we could be inspired to create even more new practices and beliefs and habits, and that makes society ever more diverse. Alright, so that is the first factor on race and ethnicity. And now this is the second factor, factor 2, socio-economic status, and we have to respond to this factor, and I've left it as a set of blanks because this is our time to practice and try out. And based on what I have shared about how to construct a PU paragraph, I will go through this, but before I go through this, can I invite all of you, my Sec 3 social studies students who are critical and adaptive thinkers, can I invite all of you, well supported by the textbook and the notes, to pause this video, and try to construct a paragraph on your own. Because this is a good chance for you to practice your critical and adaptive thinking skills, for you to assimilate and understand the content examples that are given. And I hope you have done so. So we will go. So here we respond again. We say that factor to focus, socio-economic status is important in creating a diverse society. What is socioeconomic status? Socioeconomic status is your family's financial situation based on wealth and income. In fact, we know it's a bit more. You can add in, if you perhaps at the side, an education level and occupation. So these are other sort of features of someone's socioeconomic status. We tend to say that someone has a high socioeconomic status when they are very wealthy. when they have high income, when they are taking on high skilled work with a high level of compensation and job prestige, when they have certification at advanced levels, for example, taking on an undergraduate degree from a reputable university, or a master's degree, or a postdoctoral degree, doctoral degree. Okay. Well, I guess just give the examples. So, for example, a person with high SES, high socio-economic status, may have um, um, a wealthy background, um, a, a professional job with high prestige and compensation, right? Such as a master software engineer, or an advanced degree. And then on the other hand, perhaps someone with a low SES, some with lower SES may be categorized as such due to their may have may have lesser will have lesser wealth, right? Have lesser wealth, and be in debt, or perhaps with fewer skills and educational qualifications. So perhaps these are some possible features that identify people with higher and lower socioeconomic status. And we said that the category of SES is not fixed. It's not fixed because someone with a lower SES could become someone with a higher SES, as with the examples we saw in the textbook in the lesson when we talk about the case study on page 136, right? We talked about the Sheng Siong boss and about Mr. Mr. Dennis Tay and about Mr. Faki Hilmi Gozan. We talked about these three individuals in the example in the case study given. At the same time, someone with a higher starting point in life, someone with a higher SES may have then later have a lower SES, and the idea that you can change SES, the ease by which you can go higher SES and lower SES, we call this what? We call this social mobility. Social mobility. So the ease by which you can change your socio-economic status, that is the degree of social mobility that a society has. All right. So but that is a bit extraneous to what we want to say, because in this case, we are simply trying to target. So if a society have people of different SES, and most societies do, what does that mean about diversity? There are societies that, in theory, have a smaller variation of SES, and I will not go into this. But for those of you with friends who take history, who offer pure history or elective history, you can read out about communist regimes where the goal of the government is, in fact, to reduce differences in SES to nothing. That where everyone is envisioned to be equal in social economic status, and that is a communist regime in its theoretical form. All right. So let's go to the explanation here. So since given that there are differences in socioeconomic status, what does that mean? As a result, right? Perhaps let's talk about wealth as a result of differences in someone's wealth would affect their life experiences and preferences. There would be variety, as some consumers prefer and can afford high-end goods such as Rolex watches and Ferrari cars, whereas a majority of consumers would purchase mass-produced and cheaper goods within their budgets. So that the variation here would be in preferences in the change and difference in consumption patterns. So this is a sort of economic demand variation. I'm going to remove this so that I have more space. What else? Furthermore, um, differences in education and skills training would lead to variation in individuals' skills and professional expertise. This gives rise to people doing different jobs and occupations and therefore contributing in different ways to their workplaces and societies. So here the difference is in a different the differences would be more about the individual's ability to contribute or individual's technical skills, right? Some people you could think of it this way, and you can even give examples as you are explaining this. Some are engineers; they would be able to fix different problems, technical problems, and even within engineers, just gonna bracket some examples to illustrate this. There could be chemical engineers, or there could be civil engineers, there could be electrical engineers. So even if we call someone an engineer, right, their domain of expertise could vary and differ. And that's just within engineering as a field, right? Because beyond engineering, someone could be an architect, someone could be a lawyer, someone could be a medical doctor. And if for those of you aspiring doctors out there, if you were a medical doctor, your specialty would be different too. Some are general practitioners, but others would specialize and go deeper into, for instance, right, different parts of the anatomy, right? You could be an eye doctor, a skin doctor, a bone doctor. I hope I'm not messing up what doctors do, and so on and so on. And therefore, you see there's a huge variation in the professional fields and non-professional fields even, and this gives rise to a diverse society. And so I hope I have made my point clearly. Please take down these explanations as and when they were not already taught up by you, because you are a hardworking, Sec 3 student. You may have thought up some of these explanations on your own. I'm sure you have come up with very good arguments and explanations too. And if you have something more to add from what I have gone through, please feel free to take down some of these ideas while I drink my bubble tea. All right, and this is how we construct two paragraphs of PU. One for the factor 1 to focus, one for factor 2 to focus. And for most essays, this is sufficient. This will get you good credit. However, that is not the full essay. The full essay will also then contrast these two given factors, because the question is really which one is more important. It could be that this is more important. It could be that this is more important. It could be that they're equally important. And I want to equip you with the skill to be able to wait. So let's go to the next page. Recall that there are two broad approaches to weighing. The first approach is to identify a stronger factor. You choose one factor and you say, well, that one is really the decisive, important factor. And to do that, you state your stand, you give a criterion, you strengthen that factor you said was decisive, you weaken the other factor you say is indecisive on the criterion you identified. So this is the stronger factor approach. Or in Cambridge terms, it could be called the relative importance, right? This is more important. So let me go through this example of our approach, which is the first paragraph. This is a stronger factor approach in the first paragraph. In this case, you have already done PU1, race and ethnicity is important. You have done PU2, socio-economic status is important. and you want to do your weighing, what is more important. Perhaps you choose race and ethnicity. So this is your stand. Race and ethnicity is more important in the end. Okay, sure. Why? And then you have your criterion. Please annotate this. Because ethnic groups' traditions are unique and can create ever more diversities. It's a source of creation, of value, of multiplication. And what do we mean? Ethnic groups can create more diversities because they inherit certain traditions, unique traditions, that allow for a variety of cultural practices, and some of these traditions can be blended and fused in unique ways. Some Chinese practices and Indian practices could perhaps be mixed up. Why? Because there are different groups of families and friends that are of different ethnicities, but nevertheless make real connections in a diverse society. They try to reinterpret their own practices, they share and they exchange and they mix practices, and this could create a new practice, a new diversity. And so this is strengthen one factor. On the other hand, socio-economic status creates a fixed diversity. Well, yes, it's true that differences in SES indicate differences in people's education, job scopes, and skill sets, but these are not unique. They can be acquired by anyone over time, right? If you study hard enough at some point, you could become a lawyer. You could transition between different professional careers, right? So you can even talk about upskilling through skills future. As an example of how it can be acquired by anyone over time. And so there's this fixed amount of diversity. And this would be weaken B, right? And so because there's more and more diversity created by race and ethnicity, and there's a fixed diversity created by socio-economic status, we say that race and ethnicity is in the end more important in creating a diverse society. So that is a weighing for stronger factor. And perhaps one challenge for those of you who are keen to take it up, you could try to write a weighing paragraph the other way. You could try to say that instead, socio-economic status is more important in creating a diverse society. And I think one way, one angle, one handle your argument here could hinge is about the disruptive nature of technology and innovation. I repeat, the disruptive nature of technology and innovation, constantly creating new industries. One good example today would be generative artificial intelligence, AI. How does that change the way industries and the nature of the world of work? For instance, are there going to be certain jobs that lose out to automation? You go into any supermarket today, right? The fact that a lot of customers and consumers are able to self-checkout, and those self-checkout counters, that's automation, right? What jobs are they taking away? What jobs are being replaced, right? If you have generative AI that are able, for example, to do a first cut of a legal brief, to write for the professional lawyer, right? What are the past cases that can be used to make an argument? Then what happens to the legal assistant, the paralegal? What jobs are being threatened, are being undermined? If you look at Housing Development Board, HDB, they have come up with a new AI-powered portal to match buyers and sellers of resale flats. Then what about the property agents? What jobs are being threatened and undermined and disrupted by automation and innovation and new technologies, right? So we thought about certain jobs, perhaps cashiers, perhaps paralegals, perhaps housing agents, property agents, who may have their current jobs threatened by automation and AI and technology. But what jobs are created by new technologies? And one very obvious example is software engineer. If AI is the future, you need someone to create it. So think about how technologies by creating and constantly disrupting existing industrial professional standards and job scopes, by disrupting all of these, isn't that creating more and more diversities based on socioeconomic status? So that is one angle for those of you who want to try to go with socioeconomic status being something that is even more powerful in creating diversities, as opposed to perhaps race and ethnicity, where you say that, well, race and ethnicity, yes, they create a lot of diversity, but ultimately what we inherit through tradition is limited, it's fixed, it's already there, it's not going to grow further, versus something that's constantly disrupted by technology. Think about that. Think about how to construct that argument, that weighing argument. It could be a really interesting angle. Okay, and then what about balanced conclusion? What about balanced conclusion? For balanced conclusion, you state your final stand, you state the criterion, and then you analyze how the two factors are interdependent, how they work with each other to synergize and create diversity. So equally important, that's the stand. Let me use a different color. Because both factors synergize, they synergize. I'm going to use the word synergize here. Or intersect and synergize. Race and ethnicity create different cultural background, refer to different cultural background. Socio-economic status have different skill sets. A person is shaped by both their race and their SES. By intersecting these things, they shape unique identities. It would be good if you could come up with a concrete example of this. For instance, let's say that some of the customary practices, I believe that for Malay Muslims, there's a customary practice of charity, or zakat. Is it zakat? Is charity? It's giving to those who are more needy. So what happens when you have a cultural practice about giving to the needy, and there's variation in socioeconomic status? So perhaps a society that has fewer needy people, what would that cultural practice look like? Versus a society that has more needy people, what would the cultural practice of charity look like? Perhaps these cultural practices would be done differently. Perhaps in a society with fewer needy people, charity would be done through acts of service, of helping out the needy. And perhaps for societies where there are really people who are not having enough food on their table, charity would be done through provision of food and direct needs. So perhaps having differing SES groups in a society also changes the nature of the traditions and cultural practices enacted by different race and ethnicities. And so that is what another way to think about it, the intersection and synergy of these categories. So after this half an hour lesson, what have you taken away? You have recapped today for me that we will look at the question and we identify the factors and the foci. I'll do one more for you. Here there's factor 1, factor 2. Annotate these things, by the way. And the focus, shaping an individual's identity. There's factor 1, factor 2. And there's the focus. There's factor 1. There's factor 2. And there's the focus. So we have recapped how to analyze questions, how to respond to questions. We have the first paragraph on factor 1 to focus, factor 2 to focus, and then weighing. We have recapped that. And finally, we have talked about how do we do weighing, and there are two angles. The first angle is relative importance for the stronger factor. Stand, criterion, strengthen one, weaken the other. And then we have talked about balanced conclusion. Well, both are important and they synergize and intersect in interesting ways to multiply diversity. And I've given you some examples for each. What should you do? Fill in the notes I want you to copy the question, the first question, and 3 paragraphs on foolscap. So you copy this question, you copy this paragraph, 1 peel down, you copy the second peel, choose one weighing to copy. So the first question here on foolscap, I want to see 3 paragraphs, and then you complete the next 3 questions, and it is up to you whether you want to attempt weighing for the next 3 questions, but minimally there must be 2 peel paragraphs. And I hope that today's video lesson has been good and efficient in helping you understand and apply the concept of factors shaping identity in creating unique identities and a diverse society onto the essay question, which will be tested in the Social Studies National Exams. Thank you, that's all. Have a good day ahead.